God damn it! I had this I had this make jade parcels recipe or jade parcels request yesterday, and I only made one because I was like, it's gonna be a while before I get another one that's like make jade parcels, right? And no, it's the next day. I can't.
What will this viridescent flower have, ladies and gentlemen?
It's raining. I can't cook. It's raining. I can't cook. I can't cook.
Just go to Mont.
I don't want to. Okay, fine. Hey everyone, it's Jinx and I'm a Genshin Impact math guy now. So today's video was actually going to be a part of the video I put out before Thanksgiving. By the way, happy Thanksgiving, y'all. Hope you had a good one if you're in, you know, a region that celebrates Thanksgiving. But the issue is after I finished recording all of the audio, the video ended up like 30 minutes long, and our metrics show that people don't really like videos over 22 minutes long, so here's a part 2. So today's video is going to be a little bit less scripted, it's going to have less math in it, and basically just going to be talking about what my plans are for my day 1 testing of Zhongli and Xinyan that I'll be doing on stream. Speaking of on stream, I will be streaming here on YouTube as soon as the banner goes live and as soon as I'm awake. However, I will be focusing more on how they work in terms of regular team composition, so using Zhongli as like a Petra support as well as using Xinyan as a support for general teams. If you want to see testing on how Zhongli functions in a Geo team specifically, go check out my channel partner Tuner over at twitch.tv/tuner. He runs Noel battery comps 95% of the time and is planning on doing very thorough testing on Zhongli for Noel teams and Geo teams on day 1. He's also going to be live as soon as this video goes out, so be sure to come say hi, and if you have any Twitch primes, you want to drop a sub, drop a follow, we do revenue share basically everything, so it does help us both out. Also, just a quick note, in the background footage, I am not running Cheap Deep's teams. Every single one of my units is heavily invested with at least a plus 16 artifact set and a level 60 through 80 weapon. Unlike the last video, what I'm testing out here is actually one-shot builds that require you to have very heavily invested teams, but do have high damage potential because of the wombo combinations in their ults. Technically, the carry in this team is going to be Diluc and Child that's actually acting as a burst support with big vaporized ult damage. Technically, Mona would look better, but the only character I'm missing on my main account is Mona, but I do have her for testing on my other account. Unfortunately, because Child here just exists to do gigantic damage ults, if he doesn't have investment, this is actually a very weak team, hence why I say this is a heavily invested team. I have tested this team with lower investment on my supports, and it just doesn't work as well. These kinds of compositions need you to have fully stacked artifacts on all your teammates. However, if you've ever wondered what I'm talking about when I say the top tier, god tier, a very expensive high investment team comps, this is what one of them looks like. Alright, intro stuff over, let's talk about Zhongli and Xinyan and what I want to test on day 1. Now, I know there are lots of leaks everywhere about Xinyan and Zhongli, but I won't really be talking about those. A, MIHOYO has been copyright striking a lot of the content creators who cover leaks, which is completely fair because they don't want this kind of information to be public yet, especially because B, any leak information is not final. Just because the game files have certain numbers in them, just because certain people broke NDAs and leaked stuff about their closed beta testing, doesn't mean anything and is not guaranteed to be what the stats or abilities or anything on the characters are until they come out on live. They could straight up just completely double or half Zhongli's basic attack combo or the damage on his abilities between now and when he comes out in a few days. And because Xinyan has zero official information out about her kit yet, we don't even know how much of the leaked information is going to transfer into live. So I am not comfortable discussing these leaks, A, because I don't want to get copyright strikes, but also B, because it's not going to be good or useful information. If you want useful information, you want actionable information, you want to understand how strong these characters are, what they're useful with, who they're going to be good with, what you should build on them, etc., just wait 1 or 2 days until after they come out. By then, myself and other theory crafters as well as other testers will have been able to play around with these things, test mechanics, test values, calculate math, and figure out if these characters are worth pulling for or not. For those who don't know, Child had different stats than he had in the previous leaks before he launched. On top of that, the day 1 impressions we had of Child didn't really change in terms of how we view him compared to how we view him right now. We think he is very strong and a very powerful character we also think that his teams are still very expensive even now after much more extensive testing has been done. Between myself as well as the many other theory crafters that I do discuss things with, we will be figuring out in day one the rough power level of these characters and where they'll be useful. And more importantly, we'll have the final numbers at that point, meaning we can actually make accurate and effective assertions on their strength. If Razor had the same DPS values on his basic attack as Beidou does, he would not be considered an SS tier carry, but he is because he has good numbers. Leaks by their very nature of not being final are simply put unreliable to build off of. So if you choose to invest any kind of resources, any kind of time, your resin, etc. into things for these characters before they come out, that is a risk you have to take and one I don't recommend. It's literally my job to pull these characters on day one and test them out and then make videos explaining our testing results to you guys and our recommendations, so just wait a day or two. Speaking of which, let's talk about what I want to test on day one, which I'll be doing on stream by the way when I pull Zhongli and Xinyan between my accounts. And again, I won't be referring to any leak information, this is based purely off of what MEOW has officially told us about both the characters. So let's talk about Xinyan first because it's shorter because MEOW hasn't told us that much about her kit other than showing it off in a demo in the trailer for 1.1. And they did also just release a new character demo for her, but unfortunately this doesn't actually teach us anything new about her because we still know that she has a shield, she has a burst damage ult that's AoE, and she's pyro. And because I don't want to talk about the leaked information or really discuss things based off of that, really the only things I can test is how effective she'll be as a carry option versus a support option. She is a Claymore character, and for the most part the Claymore character class has the best basic attacks in the game, so there is potential for her to be a strong physical damage carry. Probably the first thing I'll do when I get Xinyan on day one is go ahead and record her combo against the Ruin Guard so I can do some really quick frame counting calculations on her basic attack combo to see if she'll be a good carry or not. I have basically no doubts that she's not going to be as good as Razor or Keqing as a physical carry, and maybe not as good as Zhongli with Crescent Pike, but at the very least, if she's low S tier carry, she will be an option for players. And real talk, I just really want to run around with a little rocker chick with a claymore and beat up things in the overworld. But yeah, how strong she is going to end up being as a physical carry really just comes down to how good the values are and the attack speed is on her combo. Otherwise, her E and her Q we saw in that demo were basically just a burst damage ult that seems to have some kind of knockback to it, as well as a shield that might have some other pyro mechanics to it. Now, obviously, we don't know what the exact mechanics and values on the shield are going to be until she does officially launch. But I will be thoroughly testing this thing's ability to be a tankiness option, to be a reaction option, to be an enabling option, etc, etc. Although, quick aside on reaction support, a lot of people don't really understand why Xingqiu is so powerful as a reaction support, and the reason is because he is an aura reaction support. Oftentimes I see people talk about how things like Zhangling's ult or Kaya's ult or whatnot are like Xingqiu's ult, and that could not be further from incorrect. See, what makes a level 1 Xingqiu such a powerful reaction support for pyro carries is because his ult is always going to apply a hydro aura. This is because each of his swords apply separate instances of hydro. So even though Klee may be applying pyro faster than Xingqiu's swords ever could, because it applies multiple instances, the first sword will burn the pyro status on a target and the second one will still apply hydro. This is what allows him to be such a powerful reaction support for pyro carries, because even a level 1 Xingqiu is still vaporizing Klee or Diluc's damage for 50% extra damage at base. Zhongli cannot do this due to how slow the application of her ult and her Guaba are compared to someone like Child or Mona who are trying to auto-attack. And unless Xinyan has some kind of mechanic that gives her multi-instances of pyro at the same time with separate internal cooldowns, she, just like Zhongli, is not going to be able to be a vaporized support for Child, which is something that he desperately wants. In fact, in the intro for the previous video, I did show off some playtesting I did of a reverse vaporized team because Child is going to vaporize Zhangling's damage, not the other way around. Part of the reason why pyro is such a strong element right now is because Xingqiu is the only consistent aura reaction support in the game currently. And if you ever see myself or any other theory crafters talking about we need a pyro Xingqiu, we need a cryo Xingqiu, etc., what we mean is we need an aura reaction support. And currently Xingqiu is the only one in the game. The closest thing we have to a different element Xingqiu at the moment is actually Beidou, because of the mechanics of her ult make her consistently the trigger character instead. And this is actually better for Electro because Electro exclusively has transformative reactions. See, in an ideal scenario, if you're using amping reactions like Vaporize or Melt, you want the aura character to not be your carry's damage output. However, if you are using transformative reactions like Overload or Electrocharge, you actually want the carry to be Aura. This is so that their elemental mastery does not matter for the damage output of your transformative reactions, so you can build your reaction support like Beidou as exclusively an EM-based character for maximum output of reactions. And that way your carry doesn't have to sacrifice any of their base damage in their build in order to be able to run reactions. Now, Fischl is also consistently a trigger in Overload teams, however in Electrocharge teams, Fischl is like either 20% to 80% their trigger, just depending entirely on RNG. The changes to Electrocharge in 1.1 basically scuffed it, so Beidou is the only character we know will consistently be able to be trigger in any particular compositions. Also, a thing a lot of people don't know about Fischl is that unless you have Constellation 6, she actually doesn't apply that much Electro per second. Oz doesn't actually apply Electro every time he hits something because of a thing called an internal cooldown, which is basically how quickly any one ability is able to apply statuses. I actually don't remember how long the internal cooldown is for Oz for Fischl, but it's something like she can only apply 3 to 4 statuses over his 10-second duration or something. Anyway, this tangent's already gone like 4 minutes long and I don't really want to get more into it. It's way too long of an explanation to really get into in this video. However, if you're interested in me explaining how Electrocharge changed and why it's kind of scuffed now in a new video, then just go ahead and let me know in the comments below and I'll look into it. But the TLDR is that for Electrocharge teams, you basically don't ever bother building EM on any of your units unless it's a Beidou. Also, if any of the terms I'm using are confusing, like amping versus transformative reactions or aura versus trigger, go watch our masterclass about elemental reactions and you'll learn exactly what all of those mean there. So yeah, I highly doubt that Xinyan is going to have any mechanics like this, so chances are she's not going to be a good aura support for someone like Child. And because her ult is just a one-tap burst damage, she does have potential as a burst support for a team that is also Pyro type. By which I mean Xinyan is a Pyro type character for that team, not necessarily that the team has to be a Pyro team. However, I really doubt that this is going to be better than Zhongling's transferable burst support damage, so really the crux for her is going to be how good her shield is. Again, I really hope she's at least a low S tier physical carry, but we won't really know until I get to test and frame count her on day 1. Alright, let's talk about Zhongli because MIHOYO has released official information about his kit on their website. So the first thing is that when we look at his abilities, everything about his kit screams to me burst damage support, much like a Venti is or a Mona is. Pretty much he's not going to be a strong carry option, at least not stronger than like Chi-Chi or Jean, unless they just give him an obscenely strong basic attack like Diluc level basic attack. See, part of the issue with characters like Chi-Chi and Jean and potentially Zhongli is that they're split damage carries who also don't seem to have any kind of mechanics in that kit that make them better carries. This is because unlike Klee and Diluc, they cannot deal elemental damage with their basic attacks. This means that you cannot build a comp around focusing on buffing that particular damage type because you have such split damage. Now, Razor and Bennett are also like this, but I consider them both S tier. In fact, I consider Razor at the bottom of double S tier carries, but that's because they have mechanics in their kit that make them stronger carries. Razor's ult gives him a massive attack speed steroid, so much so that he is the best physical carry in the game currently. And when Bennett is inside of his ult at Ascension 4, he has a 2-second cooldown on his E, which allows him to spam out a bunch of pyro damage even though his damage is splits. This makes the talent damage percentage total he does per second comparable to Diluc's. The only issue is he is split damage type unlike Diluc, so he is going to be weaker than him. But if you throw a Chongyun into Bennett's comp as a support, suddenly Bennett is able to melt on all of his elemental damage, a thing that Diluc cannot do, which does close the gap somewhat. These two are split damage type carries, however they are ahead of the other split damage type carries other than physical Keqing. This is because they have mechanics in their kit that make them strong carry options. Zhongli doesn't have this. His E and his Q are just as good if he's a support as if he's a carry. In fact, they'll probably be better when he's a burst support because you can build either Petraset or Noblesse or Gamblers or whatever to enhance the damage of his skills and not worry about his auto attack damage output. So unless Zhongli's basic attack combo just happens to to have a ridiculously high DPS like Diluc level DPS, he's just not going to be an S tier carry option. By the way, for those of you who don't know, the talent damage per second on Diluc's basic attack combo against a rune guard with hit lag is about 180 per second. Most of the characters in the game's basic attacks at level 6 talent are sub 100% per second. Diluc's basic attack is one of the few things in this game I genuinely consider overpowered because it outperforms so heavily to basically any other melee character. But I don't want to get too much into that because that is something I already covered when talking about Child compared to other god carries in the game. Go check out that video if you want to see the DPS comparison between the various different SS and S tier characters. At least what their bread and butter basic combos look like. I don't include ults, I don't include the various team comp related things in those calculations. Total team calculations of damage output for a full team involving all of the variables are just much more complicated, and I haven't really gone around to all of those yet. But yeah, with Zhongli, he seems to be pretty much built to be a burst support, much like how Venti is built to be a burst support and Mona is built to be a burst support. Now, I am going to go ahead and just make a prediction right now, which is that when Zhongli comes out, basically every streamer and content creator on YouTube who does not understand how damage calculations work in this game and team comp calculations work in this game is gonna think Zhongli is overpowered. There's pretty much one core reason for this. Geo characters in this game have high base values. However, they do fall off DPS wise compared to other elements because they lack multipliers late game. See, Geo is supposed to be the tanky element. This means that they trade off potential DPS for tankiness because they make shields. This is why in my carry tier list, I only put Noelle at A tier because yes, her base damage is very high, but you can't multiply it further past that. In terms of single target damage, Noelle, and I do run a Noelle battery comp that is very well invested on my second account, simply cannot compare to the S and SS tier carries in terms of pure single target damage outputs. And this is fine and balanced because Geo is the tanky element. They make shields, they make you tankier. They're not supposed to be able to do as much damage as the glass cannon other elements. To compensate for this though, Geo characters tend to have much higher base values, which is why a lot of people tend to think Noelle and Ningguang carries are much stronger than they are. Don't get me wrong, they're still A tier DPSs, but the reality is because they're Geo, they simply cannot get the same multiplier stacks that the other characters can get. Physical damage can get superconduct, which reduces physical resistance on an enemy by 40%. And then the other elements in the game, so Cryo, Hydro, Pyro, and Electro, can have a Venera support and a Nemo support with Veritas Venera 4-set bonus that shreds elemental resistance for them, giving them another damage multiplier. Because both Geo and Nemo are both only trigger elements, you cannot use Veritas and Venera with Geo characters, so you lose that multiplier. On top of that, you can run the actual Geo set, the Petra set, to increase the elemental damage of a different element by 35%, but you can't do this with Geo. On top of that, a lot of the banner characters like Zhongli have elemental damage reductions as well as elemental damage bonuses built into their constellations. And on top of that, you can also do damaging reactions like Vaporize, Overload, Electroshock, Shatter, Superconduct, etc. with other elements. When Geo characters do reactions, they make shields, not damage. And even with the 4-set Petra bonus, you can't make Geo do more damage because you can't make Geo crystals to buff Geo damage. Now, it is possible Zhongli might have some mechanic that lets us make Geo crystals, we don't know yet. And if it does, it would make him a very strong Petra 4-set support for a Geo team. And yes, this is something I will go ahead and be testing on day 1. But yeah guys, just to re-clarify, Geo characters have high base damages, but when you have strong teams built around synergy and damaging reactions and shredding elemental resistances, etc., they fall off compared to other elements. And they also fall off compared to strong physical carries in the game. And this is fine and balanced because Geo is the tanky element. They should never be able to do the same kind of single target DPS other elemental damage types can if the game is balanced. Noelle trades out single target damage for basically never dying and hitting an entire room at the same time. and that's fine and balanced. So yeah, if Zhongli falls in line with the pattern we've had with the other Geo characters in the game, he's going to have very high base values, but due to lack of multiplier synergy, he's not going to be able to output as much as say a Venti or a Mona would be able to add damage to a team. And again, that's fine because he makes shields. But here is the most important thing I want to test with Zhongli when he comes out. He might actually be able to enable Geo comps to be proper Geo comps in the Abyss and late game domains. Now, if you've never tried to run Geo comps in the late Abyss, you probably don't understand why Geo struggles and has issues with its team compositions in late Abyss. Now, I do run Noelle battery comps on my second account that's I think at the AL47 right now, and then my channel partner Tuner does run basically exclusively Noelle battery comps, and he streams almost every day. If you're curious to see what those look like and want to see him play much more mechanically cleanly than I do, be sure to go check him out. He is also going to be pulling for Zhongli on day 1 and testing him out with Noelle, and honestly he's going to do a lot more testing on it than I will because I want to focus a bit more on looking at Xinyan. But anyway, the thing about Geo comps is Geo is the only element in the game that really wants to run at least 3 Geo characters. See, the stronger option out of the 2 current Geo carries in the game, Ningguang and Noelle, is going to be Noelle. The main reason for this is that both of them can deal 100% Geo damage as long as Noelle is ulting and you have a team built around generating her ult, but they both have pretty comparable single target damage while Noelle has much better AoE damage and is much tankier. In fact, Ningguang is a pretty strong carry, but she's a much better burst support in my opinion. She's currently the best Petra support in the game for a non-Geo team to enhance the damage on that elemental team with the Petra set bonus, and the amount of raw burst damage she can output by just pressing E and Q as a support is very high. Again, Geo characters just have high base damage. But the thing about Noelle is Noelle cannot generate her own elemental particles. Even if you hit things in melee range with her E ability, it doesn't create any elemental particles unless you damage the enemy enough to hit a HP threshold and get an HP particle. This means if Noelle wants to be popping her ult off cooldown even at Constellation 6 against opponents who are tanky enough not to die quickly and just refund you energy because you're killing things so fast, she wants 2 Geo characters on her team to generate energy for her that you can funnel into her by switching to her. This is the fundamental of how a Noelle battery comp works. You try to get as close to 100% uptime on Noelle's ult as possible by popping your Geo support's abilities and absorbing the particles as Noelle. The problem is, as I mentioned earlier in the video, you have to counter elements late game. Now, Geo is a little bit faster at breaking elemental shields than the incorrect damage type, but they are like 5 times slower than breaking shields with the counter element damage type. This is especially true for Fatui units, and the hardest content in the game currently is the 12-3 level 100 Fatuis in the Abyss. And every single one of the floors from 9 through 12 in the Abyss do have Fatui units in them. And as you've probably noticed, if a Fatui has their shield up and you don't break it, they have perfect hyper armor and you deal like 20% damage. This is why you need to bring counter elements. The problem is, in the late Abyss and also a lot of domain content and a lot of late game content in general, you have to bring up to 2 counter elements. This means that you have to run 1 Geo support for Noelle and you have to use Geo MC because Ningguang just doesn't generate enough energy even with sacrificial fragments. And even then, if you invest in energy recharge on Noelle's build, you're at best hitting around maybe 80% uptime with Constellation 6. This means no matter what you do, you can't really have that juicy 100% uptime ult on Noelle unless you really dumpster her build to build too much energy recharge. And on top of this, she's still just doing less single target damage even with 100% ult uptime compared to the other top tier carries in the game. So here's my theory, right? Zhongli is going to change this hopefully because of his resonance ability on his E. In theory, if each of the resonance damage from Zhongli's E as well as the other Geo constructs on the field count as separate shield break instances, they will be able to actually break Fatui shields without counter elements. Of course, this will be slower than using actual counter elements, but at least they will be able to break them without counter elements. This will enable us to run a triple Geo composition of Geo MC, Noelle as carry, and Zhongli as a burst support. And then your third character is still probably going to be a non-Geo character because you want to have some kind of passive status applying character who can apply Pyro, Cryo, Hydro, or whatever to targets so you can get crystallized shields on demand. You know, someone like Fischl or Xingqiu or Zhongli or Mona, someone like that who can apply statuses that you can use to crystallize more shields while Noelle is swinging. This is probably what Tuner is going to be testing first, and Tuner is just going to be testing a lot of different things about Zhongli when he comes out. Again, Tuner's the one who's testing the Geo team stuff, I'm testing all the other stuff basically. But yeah, currently Geo just kind of scuffed in the Abyss. You just can't afford to run a proper 3 Geo comp in the Abyss right now because you need to counter for 2E shields. Unless, of course, you have such a hyper whale account that your Noelle is so goddamn powerful you can just murder the things through their shields, but that's not realistic for most of us. But yeah, this is the thing I am most interested in with Zhongli, is how well does he enable Geo compositions to work, because if he doesn't enable them to run 3 Geo against for 2Es, you're pretty much going to be forced to pick between running either Noelle and Geo MC or Noelle and Zhongli. And Noelle and Zhongli have very little synergy with each other because Noelle is the only Geo character that doesn't make constructs for his E to resonate with. On top of that, it seems unlikely Zhongli produces enough energy to fund a Noelle battery comp. But yeah, those are the two things I am interested in testing out with Zhongli. Is he going to enable Geo compositions to actually work properly in the Abyss? And will he be a strong burst support, most likely with a 4-set Petrus set for other elemental teams that aren't Geo teams? I guess we'll find out in a couple days. Alright, that is all I have for this video, including the tangents. This went a little bit longer, but this is more of a rambly sort of video anyway, just kind of talking about my thoughts on what we plan on testing. As always, thank you so much for checking out the video. If you'd like to help us out, be sure to like the video, comment, and subscribe. All of these things do help push it up in the SEO, so more people just get to see it naturally. If there are other non-leak related things you want us to test on the new characters when they come out, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And again, don't forget to check out Tuner over at twitch.tv/Tuner. He is streaming right now and is a great place to learn about Geo compositions and just see someone play much more mechanically skillfully than I can. Also, don't forget to check out our Twitters. The @JinxMathlos is my personal account where I do post all the new spreadsheets and charts I'm working on, what I'm planning on doing, things I'm testing, and thoughts I have on the game. And then the @JinxMathlos is the company account run by Tuner that covers more general channel stuff as well as stuff related to the Twitch. And don't forget to check out our Discord server, the Mathlos Nest. I do try to pop in occasionally and try to help people out with various things, explain certain stuff, but if I do that too often, videos just don't get made. However, we do have a fantastic community of people who are all willing to help each other out and learn together, so definitely go check it out. I also do hang out in the child mains as well as the Kaching mains Discord server pretty often, trading notes with other theorycrafters, discussing things, so links to those in the description if you're interested in seeing those as well. And of course, none of this would be possible without the generosity of our patrons. Y'all already know what I'm gonna say because I say it every video, and it is still true. Y'all the best. Alright guys, I'm gonna go ahead and work on a new video now. There are 2 videos I want to get out before the banner rolls around, so I'm kind of in deep editing mode right now. So you know, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so YouTube will tell you as soon as videos come out. Alright, happy waifu hunting whalers. I'll see you next time. Bye!